So, Kal Kadosh, we are going to be doing now, we're going to speak about the Rechaim HaKadosh to do with Parashat Haye Sarah. We're going to speak about the selling of the Bechorah according to the conditions of Halacha, which means the Rechaim HaKadosh is going to explain the Parashat of selling of the Bechorah. How could it be with all the Diktukei Halacha, especially when Mecher U'Matana, it's not Chal on something which does not come into the world, which means that if it's something is still not in the world, it cannot come. So how does this happen before the Torah was given? Number two we're going to speak about is the Avot, they fulfilled the Torah before it was given, even Mitzvot Rabbanan. So we're going to explain that. Okay, even the Gezerot and everything else, because it says that Abraham Avinu was even careful of Patakum and Stam Yain, meaning of wine and even Patakum. And Rivka was also careful of Rechilut. So there's obviously a lot of things to know. Number three, the Avot, the forefathers, they were Mekayem Mishpata Torah even before the Torah was given. How does that work exactly? We're going to speak about all these things. Okay? And then it says here, the king of Sodom, Avimelech, Laban, they were doing everything according to Chosh Mishpat and Yeridea. Then the sixth thing that we're going to speak about is before Matan Torah, they were obligated. Everybody was obligated because of the Sechel. And then we'll speak about Nedarim U'Shvuot. So it's also connected to the Daf Yomi of the day as well. So let's start, okay? Page 1. It's actually Aleph. So in page Aleph, it says, Mechirat HaBechorah al pi kol t'na'ei halacha. The Rechaim HaKadosh comes and he says that we're talking about Parashat Mechirat HaBechorah. When you're talking about the selling of the Bechorah, how is the sale good according to the halacha? Can I come and sell to you something that doesn't come into the world? It's not in this world. You know what? I'm going to make Bezrat Hashem billions of dollars. You want to be my partner? I'm selling you a partnership. So give me 500,000, right? Or give me. It's still not in the world. If it's not in the world, how do you acquire something which is not in the world? And Parashat Toledot, it says, Vayomer Yaakov, Michrach hayom bechorah li. Sell me your bechorah. So says Esav, I'm going to die. Who's it going to help me bechorah? So says Yaakov, swear to me. He swore to him. So he comes and he sells his bechorah to Yaakov Avinu. Says Rechaim HaKadosh, pay attention. Vayomer Yaakov Michrach hayom, one bet. What does it say? Vehem dvarim shelo ba'u la'olam. This is something which did not come into the world. According to the Torah, you cannot be makneh, you cannot acquire something which did not come to the world. So how in the world is this going to work? Okay? So he comes and he says, imagine a person comes and he says, you know what? I'm going to go trap animals, whether it's fish or whatever it is. And he comes and he says, you know what? Whatever I trap is yours. I didn't trap anything yet. So nothing helps. Because if it wasn't trapped, it doesn't help. He's saying just like today. He says why? Because he was ayef. He was very tired. Now, if he's going to sell something which he needs just for today, it's a good sale. Right? Even though it's something which is davar shelo ba'olam. That's why he said, like today. Today you're hungry. Today you're tired. If you sell something for today, and it's only for today, it is a good sale. So you see from here that Yaakov Avinu was doing it purposely, that even though there's a general rule that a person cannot be makneh davar shel olam, which means you cannot sell something which does not come into this world, here he did it in a loophole to make sure it's chal, to make sure that it's going to take into effect. Now when he comes and he says, Vayomer Yishaveh Ali, he comes and he tells him, swear to me. Why do you need a shavua? Yeah, why do you need a shavua? Yeah, he says like this. He says, you know, one in the Shua. En adam makneh davar shelo ba'olam, right? Velo b'matana, right? B'davar she'en bo mamash. It doesn't have mamashut. Mamashut, it's not tangible. Laze nitchakem lezakot b'davar al-yedei shavua. That's why he says you need a shavua. Because a net, all those things is not going to help. A shavua helps on something which is not tangible.
I'm waiting outside for a whole.
Yeah? What? He says, it came to me the Sefer of the Rivash, Siman Shin Kavchet, and says Rechaim HaKadosh, I saw in the name of Rabbi Yaakov, the son of the Rosh, that he writes down the name of his father, Temakneh davar shelo ba'olam im nishba kana. even though usually you cannot acquire something which did not come into this world, but if you swear on it, you are koneh. And the proof is from Yaakov Avinu that he says, Yishavyali. So he comes and he says, Lo Arosh v'lo Rabbeinu Yaakov berei chatumi aleh. It's not signed on there. Don't say it in such a thing. Gama Raya that they brought is nothing. Why? Because this was before the dibur. How do you know that a person cannot be maknet? It was before Matan Torah. Everything that we're doing, you're talking about now, is according to the dinim of the Torah. The Torah wasn't given yet. So how do you know it has the same halachot? Right? So he wants to say, maybe it's just be'emet, like it's extra, like we want to try to make it that they also did according to the Torah. But really, be'emet, this was before Matan Torah. So maybe it did help. Right? This is before Matan Torah. The Torah wasn't given. Okay? So he comes and he says as follows. Yeah? Here in the footnote, it brings down on the bottom in Meoreh Chaim, it says, Ka'et zachinu lepilush haTorah la Torah, v'adavar katuv sham b'shem, right, harosh. He says, nowadays we have the Tur on the Torah, the Balaturim. The Balaturim is on the Torah, the son of the Rosh, and there it says it mefurash there. So it does, say it over there. Okay, page bet. The Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh continues and he says, Ki shivua zu tzricha liot al da'ato shel Yaakov. It has to be on the da'at of Yaakov Avinu. Okay? And now he comes and he says, he sold him the Bechorah, enu yachol lachzor bo, diada'u machal, because he knew about it, and it was machal. Meaning like this. If you come and you sell something, so if you didn't know about a certain part of the sale, so it's still going to be okay. Because I could say, listen, you're going to retract. But if you knew about it, so you knew about it, and then you were mochel. Right? So therefore, that's it. So for example, you come and you sell me, let's say you sell me a car. I didn't know there was a certain type of a defect, and the defect is so big. So what happens? I could retract on the sale. Why? It wasn't a good sale. But if I knew about it, and I still buy it, what happens? So I knew and I was mochel. I knew, I forgave. And therefore, it's going to be a good sale. So the same thing, he comes and he says, here, right, the fact that he went and he sold it, it wasn't like a mistake. He knew about it, therefore he didn't retract, so he knew about it. And once he knows about it, it's considered a good sale. The Sefer Kol HaKatuv L'Chaim, right, and this is Rav Meir Schwartz. He comes and he says like this, V'katav levaer, divrei Rabbeinu dekevan du yachol lishal al shvuato im ken lo samcha dateh. So he comes and he says, 1 second, but he could do atarat nedarim or atarat shvuot here. He could come and he could ask in order to annul the shavua. He could annul the shavua. So he comes and he says, so according to this, if they come and they swear that there's no hatara v'shela, so it helps even according to the Rivash. So he comes and he says, even an akum, that means according to the Marsham, in the Sefer Mishpetei Shalom, in the Kli Chemda, even a goy could come and to be shoel al nidro. He could come and he could ask to annul his shavua. And therefore, that's why he comes and he says, Rabbeinu, he comes and he says that he couldn't answer that, you could have done hatarat nedarim. He says, no. Shekol dinei HaTorah noagim b'Yisrael, noagim ba'akum. He says, whatever is noheg by a Jew is also by the goy. So the same thing, he could have malash. There was a concept of doing hatarat shavuot. But now we're going to speak about the Avot HaKadoshim. Where did they fulfill the Torah beforehand? Or not? So he says over here like this. Page Gimel. Right? It says in the Gemara. Amar Rav. Gemara. Mesechet Yoma Kavchet Amubet. Right on the top. Yeah? Amar Rav. Kiyem Avraham Avinu Kol HaTorah Kula. Avraham Avinu, he fulfilled all the Torah. Shneimar Ekev Asher Shamam Avinu B'Koli. What does that mean? It's not only just, says the Gemara, maybe it's Sheva Mitzvot Ben Enoch. He says, yeah, but there's Milah. Milah is not one of the Sheva Mitzvot Ben Enoch. Brit Milah. Brit Milah Avraham Avinu did. It's not one of the Sheva Mitzvot Ben Enoch. So he says, okay, so maybe it's Sheva Mitzvot Ben Enoch and maybe Brit Milah. So he says, what does it mean, Mitzvotai v'Toratai? Avraham Avinu, he kept my mitzvot and my Torah. What does that mean? So Item Rashi, he comes and he says, he was Mekayem even Eruvet Tavshilim. Even Eruv Tavshilim. Remember, Eruv Tavshilim is to prepare from Yom Tov to Shabbat. So even that he did. So he comes and he says whether it's Torah shebichtav or Torah shebe'al peh. So he comes when it says that it's going to be that all these things, even Eruvet Tavshilim, it's not halacha l'Moshe Sinai, it's takanat sofrim. It's something from the rabbis. So Eruvet Tavshilim, which is the Rabbanan, he also did it. He fulfilled it. Avraham Avinu fulfilled everything, even that. So he comes and he says, in Masechet Kiddushin, right, Perek Revi'i, Matzinu she'asa Avraham Avinu kol haTorah kula shelo nitra. we found that Avraham Avinu, he fulfilled the entire Torah even before it was given. Because it says what? Vayishmor mishmarti mitzvotai v'chukotai v'torotai. There's Masechet Kiddushin Perek Daled, Mishnah Yudaled. Next. Ekev asher shama v'rom yekori, this is what it says over here. Vayishmor mishmarti, says Rashi, gezerot le'archaka. He even made gezerot. He even made decrees in order to distance himself from not doing any averot. The Ramban comes and he says, Leshon Rashi, Bekoli, that I tested him. Then when it says over there, it continues going on the underlines, Balpeh, he kept the Torah Balpeh. So it comes out that Avraham Avinu fulfilled the entire Torah even before it was given. Even before, remember, who gave the Torah? It was given through Moshe Rabbeinu. So even Avraham Avinu came and he was fulfilling the entire Torah. So then we have a question. How does Yaakov Avinu place a matzeva? He got married to two sisters, and then, right, and you can do that. And then Amram comes and he got married to his aunt. Moshe Rabbeinu also made 12 matzeva. And how do they do that? It was a sur, right? Avraham Avinu is not a question. We answered that many different times.
It's not answering this, it's contradicting this, because
it's not contradicting. Because he fulfilled the entire Torah Kula. No, and he did fulfill the entire Torah.
But we said back then that.
So says Ramban, what about Amram? Amram got married to Yocheved. Yocheved was Dodato, was his aunt. And Moshe Rabbeinu, he made so what's going on here? So he comes and he says, she writes, Elu kulan nitzavu b'hem ben Noach. V'anireh elai. Look at the underlines in the Ramban, the bottom of page Gimel. V'anireh elai midat rabotenu. V'shamar ota kula kemo she'enu mitzuveh v'oseh. He was keeping the entire Torah like eno mitzuveh v'oseh. Like a boy that's under bar mitzvah. What does that mean? A boy that's under bar mitzvah fulfills the Torah, but he's not commanded in everything of the Torah. See, he's still a child. It's only that he's there doing it like he's not commanded and he's doing it. You understood? So he comes and he says now, Ushmirato haya be'eretz bilvad. It was only in Eretz Yisrael. V'Yaakov, he did it in Chutz Haaretz. He got married in Chutz Haaretz. Amram was in Chutz Haaretz. So he comes and he says the main place where they kept the mitzvot was in Eretz Yisrael. In Chutz Haaretz, they only kept it like Misheino Mitzuvah said, you're not commanded to do it. But if you do it, so they tried to do as much as they could. But whatever they didn't do, they didn't do. That's what the Ramban says. Yosef Tarshu, afilu b'Mitzrayim. That even in Mitzrayim he was keeping Shabbat. So he was doing that to teach his children. He wanted to take them out from Avodah Zarah. That's what he wanted to do. So therefore, you see from here in the Shita of the Ramban that they would fulfill the entire Torah. First of all, the Yikar place where they kept it was in Eretz Yisrael. But number two, it all depends where they were, right? They were only keeping it like Eno Mitzuveh Ve'oseh. Or Chaim HaKadosh on page 4, Aleph, says, Reuven Bechori Ata, Kochi V'Reshit Oni. Yeter said, so this is where the Chaim HaKadosh speaks about this. Before it was a Ramban, Nachmanides, one of the Rishonim. Now you have the Chaim HaKadosh. So the Chaim HaKadosh comes and he says, page 4, yeah? He comes and he says, how did Yaakov really do the opposite, which was within the Torah? So he comes and he says in the first hand, now I'm reading by the hand. Did they have to fulfill the entire Torah? Yaakov got married to two sisters. Abraham didn't do Brit Milah until he was older, and many other things also. I'm skipping another 2 paragraphs to the next one. שקיבל מנוח, שקיבל מחנוך, שקיבל מאדם הראשון, שלמדה מפי הגבורה. You know what was the Masoret of the Torah? The Masoret of the Torah was that Avot HaKadoshim, right, they received it from Shem Ba'eved, from Shem. Shem received it from Noach, his father. Noach received it from Chanoch. Chanoch received it from Adam HaRishon, that he received it from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So therefore you see from here, right, that until then it wasn't only just on the Sheva Mitzvot, Shim Yavor Alem Yareg. The rest of the Torah, that means on the Sheva Mitzvot Ben Noach was Yareg Val Yavor. But the rest of the Torah was Karov L'Scharim Yaseh, Berachok Min HaSedem Lo Yekayim. If they do it, they get reward. But if they don't do it, they don't get punished. Ve'avot, I'm skipping to the next paragraph. Ve'avot, Letzad Chavivutam, since they loved the Kadosh Baruch Hu so much, they did everything. meaning they weren't commanded, but they did everything, even though they didn't need to, right? And that's what it says over here. So therefore, then afterwards, but if right now he saw that there was more of a to'elet without doing the mitzvah, meaning there's something that's going to help out even without doing the mitzvah. For example, Yaakov Avinu, that he got married to 2 sisters. So then, so then he didn't pay attention to the mitzvah, and he actually did, he got married. Meaning like this, so Chaim HaKadosh is coming and telling us something incredible. They were not obligated in the Torah. But if they did the Torah, they got reward. If they didn't do the Torah, they don't get punished. They weren't obligated in the Torah yet. The Torah was not given yet. But they loved the Kadosh Baruch Hu so much, they want to fill the entire Torah. So what happens? What happens is something incredible. Any time when there was going to be a circumstance where they saw that not keeping the Torah, by not keeping the Torah, they were going to gain from it, so then they didn't keep the Torah. So Yaakov Avinu, when he saw marrying 2 sisters, Rachel and Leah, he went and he said, the fact that I get married to both of them is higher than if I'm going to keep the Torah now. Because remember, he wasn't obligated in the Torah. So therefore, he just said, the same thing with Amram. Amram gets married to his aunt, Yocheved. Moshe Rabbeinu came from a union between a nephew and an aunt. What's going on? Very simple. Because when he saw that it was greater to get married than to fulfill the Torah in this case. And therefore he comes and he says, we could also say Sapia Dibur, that was from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We could always say that. Because they were Nevi'im. And therefore they did a Ma'aseh according to their Nevuah. Right? So you could always say that as well. You don't need to get to that technically. Meaning that that's like an answer that you could, HaKadosh Baruch Hu told them to do this, even though it was, against the Torah later on, further on, right? In the Nefesh HaChaim on the bottom of the page. Okay, listen to the Nefesh HaChaim. Chaim Volozhin. He comes and he says, the Adam HaYashar, the person that's straight, Ha'oved Amiti, he comes and he says, Lo yefane dato machshavto bet avodato, lo yibarach shemo. He's not going to put away his mind, right, when he's coming and he's doing these things. Afilu kedei la'alot u'tzael gufo v'nafsho, even to come and to purify himself. אלא שיעלה תואר מחשבתו וכוונתו פנה למעלה לתיקון וטהרת עולמות קדושים. It's in order to come and to purify the upper worlds. וזו הייתה גם כן עניין עבודתם של אבות. That's what the אבות did. וכל הצדיקים הנשארים, and all the tzadikim even before the Torah was given. Just like Chazal say, מן הבא מהתורה, מכאן שלמה נוח learned Torah, אברהם אבינו fulfilled the entire Torah. What's going on? On the left side, רק מצד השגתם בתואר שכלם התיקונים הנוראים. When they realize all the tikkunim that they're doing, when they're doing in all the olamot and all the things, and all the pagam, the defects and everything, when they do averot, they wanted to do it. לכן כשהגיב יעקב, כשהגיב יעקב אבינו, שלפי שורש נשמתו יגרום תיקונים גדולים, בכוחו ועולמות ונמצא שתי האחיות אלו רחל ולאה. So when Yaakov Avinu felt, and he was able to understand, that if he gets married to the 2 sisters, Rachel and Leah, he's going to make incredible things in the upper worlds, the tikkunim. He went and he said, they're going to build Bet Israel. He went and he got kama yigyot v'avodot until he got married to both of them. Just like Moshe Rabbeinu, just like Yocheved and Amram was the same thing that they had Moshe Rabbeinu. And that's also one of the reasons why the Torah was not given to Noach and the Avot HaKadoshim. Because if it was given to them, so then Yaakov Avinu couldn't get married to Rachel Leah. Amram could not get married to Yocheved. So therefore, he says, even if they would have gotten much more, according to Shoresh Nishmatam, all of B'niyat Bet Israel, Am Segula, V'tikun Kol Ha'olamot, right, V'lyonim V'tachtonim, was dependent upon that. Something incredible. You see from here that if it wasn't, that means if HaKadosh Baruch Hu would have given the Torah to Avraham Avinu, or to already Noah, so then we wouldn't have had Moshe Rabbeinu. We wouldn't have had the Bet Israel, we wouldn't have had Rachel and Leah. Because they couldn't have got married to Yaakov Avinu. So therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu only gave it afterwards, in order that they're able to come and they're able to fulfill, right, everything that we're saying over here, which I think is something incredible. This is the Nefesh HaChaim. Next, page 5 Aleph. In the Orach Chaim HaKadosh and other places also, we see about the Avot and Imahot, how they were so careful and even Gezerot of Chachamim. It says, Malki Tzedek Melech Shalem, right? Who's Malki Tzedek? Hashem. Shivsik binyan melech shalem. What does that mean? He made a hefsek between Yitzhak melech Sedom lodat v'rav Avraham to tell you the greatness of the tzaddikim. All dirtzeh derech Omram Zal. Also, you could explain. Says Orach Chaim HaKadosh. Again, this is Perek Yudalid Pasuk Yudchet. Ki em Avraham Avinu even fulfilled the Rovet Tavshilin and everything. Tikunei D'Rabbanan. And not only that, if you continue, it said, why did Abraham Avinu not even want, whether it's, the lechem and all those? He says, because Abraham Avinu didn't want their bread. He didn't want their bread because of pat goyim, patakum. He didn't want their wine because of stam yanam. So because of that, he went and he said, no, you guys. So he had to go and eat it from Shem, right? That Shem had to give it to him directly. And therefore he says, afilu lechem v'yayin she'enem d'Rabbanan. Even on bread and wine, which is only the Rabbanans, Avraham Avinu was careful. Kol sheken other things, which is going to be doraita. Okay? Now it's even more than that. Listen to this. Vatomer Rivka Yitzchak. Rivka comes and she tells her husband Yitzchak, Katzti b'chayai, I'm sick and tired of this benot chet. If Yaakov is going to take a girl from here, why am I alive? Says the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, Lo ratzta legalot hadavar liYitzchak, mishum isur lechilut. She didn't want to tell Yitzchak everything that was going on because of the chilut, lashon hara. So therefore she didn't. So what? So she went and she said it. I can't have. Why didn't she just say these girls are there? No, katzti b'chayai. I need that my son should get married to somebody else. He can't get married to the daughters of Chet, right? Get her married to her own family. The chilut Rivka was careful about. The Or HaChaim HaKadosh on the bottom says, "Vatomer Sarah." So this was already in Parashat Lech Lecha. 2 weeks ago it says, Avraham Avinu comes and Sarah tells Avraham Avinu, Chamasi alecha, I gave you my shivcha, I gave you my maidservant, and now she's putting her head up in the air, showing that she's the mistress, that she's the tzadeket, that she's the higher one. What's going on? You don't say anything, right? You're quiet. What's going on? It says over here, right? Look in the bottom where it says by the hand, he comes and he says, Shivcha mitzrit, shivchat melog haita. This shivcha mitzrit is considered nichse melug, which she's chayav b'mezunotea, velo ya rashay lemochra. You have to give her to eat, but you're not allowed to sell it. The Shakish comes and he says, Ma'u detana, which means, yes. So he comes and he says, Kema de'at amar melog melog. Hare agar haita gufa kruya lesara, uperotea le'Avram el-Mulga. Meaning, the body of Sarah belonged to who? The body, of Hagar. What is Nisemiluk? So the body belongs to Sarah, but he's allowed, the husband is allowed to have the fruits, the perot, the fruits. Just like Shteh Shivchot, B'nei Shivchat Milug. Im Yalda, there's a machloket over there. So what happens? So the Vehu Adin Shivcha She'isiya Rabba Leben Chorin, Asa Bat Chorin. Right now, what happens is that right now, if you take a Shivcha and you come and you got her married to a Ben Chorin, right? So now you made her into a Ben Chorin. You made her into a Bat Chorin. So it comes to Rabbi Yosef Karo and Yilchot Avadim. Habal Shivchato. If somebody has relations with his own maidservant, he made her free, and only if it's l'shem ishut. But if it wasn't l'shem ishut, then no. Bevale astam is a machloket rif Rambam. So now the question was, what's going on over here? Because if he's coming and if he's living with the maidservant and he's making her free, who does it belong to? It belongs to Sarah, not to Abraham.
So
okay. So then that's the entire question. How can he make her free? So then he comes and he continues in the next Or HaChaim HaKadosh. He comes and he says, "V'dana bazeh bet chilukei danim." So he comes and he says that first of all, right? The question was he doing it as a marriage or was he doing it stam? So therefore he comes and he says that's why she came and she said she had a tluna against Avraham Avinu. He says why? Because, right, he says, I don't have something against Hagar. Chamasi alecha on you, right? Why? Right? Because he comes and he says that what are you doing here? Anochi natati shivchati bechekecha, pirush, this shivcha is like nichse melug. And therefore, I didn't tell you to do it l'shem ishut. So if there's no shichrur, you didn't free her, right? There was no free her here. So therefore, that's why he's coming and he's saying it's against you. It's not against Hagar. I have a tana against you. So Abraham, he agreed. And he says, you're right. Why? Because in Achanami, you're right. There was a problem. Doesn't matter though. But it wasn't l'shem ishut. It was not l'shem ishut. No. He says here, the Or HaChaim HaKadosh says in Parashat Vayechi in Sefer Bereshit, Miknei HaSadeh 7a. It says over here, Miknei HaSadeh v'mana shebo benechet. He says benechet could have come and said because of Dina de Bar Metzra, they could have taken it out of their hands, just like the Rambam says, right? So he comes, you want to say that maybe there was no Bar Metzra. What does that mean? Usually, when you want to sell a property, the ones which are right beside the property have first grabs over the property. So therefore, they could have come and they said, "Listen, what are you selling the thing? We're right beside them. So therefore, obviously, it was done in a way that there was not going to be any dina de bar mitzvah, but if not, then he would have been able to take it away from them. So you see that everything that was done was always done al pia Torah, and then we'll continue Bezrat Hashem later on to understand.